Hi everyone, it's Plesky P here, coming from Melbourne, Australia, and I've got two fantastic guests. I've got Freda Payne. She's the queen of song, and let me tell you, they love her so much in Australia. Her song Band of Gold was the biggest song of the 70s, make no mistake, a #1 worldwide hit all over, and now she has a fantastic book written with the fabulous Mark Bego. It's Freda Payne, a memoir. It's all available on Amazon, Booktopia here in Australia, even on eBay, they're taking pre-orders. And let me tell you, Freda, it's such a pleasure having you on the show, and you as well, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I heard so much about you.
Now,
it was all good.
Now, Freda, it's unbelievable how many fans you have, right? The new generations of fans. I'll give you an example. Last night, I sat with my wife and I went to YouTube and I watched these fantastic concerts that you did. For example, the one you did where Sir Cliff Richard introduces you. The other one that I really liked was the one where you're on American Idol and then comes Thelma Houston, then comes Wayne Casey.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh God, you mentioned three dynamic, let's say standout moments. Working with Sir Cliff Richard was really, oh God, it was wonderful. It was better than wonderful. It was one of the best tours I've ever been on. And he's like an angel. Working with him is a dream. He's such a gentleman. And I just love work, and I love his work, his performances, his vocals, and he's all of that. I give him a 10.
And you know what's really a standout? I want to get into the book, but before I do, I also want to say, you know, the great thing about releasing your single Band of Gold on the 25th of April, 1970, it's pre-disco. So what happens is, when it comes 76 and 78, you're up there already with the disco. I remember going to the discos and then playing Band of Gold. So, I mean, how great is that?
Oh, it's fantastic. You know something, when I first recorded the song, it was in Detroit, I was working, it was produced by Holland, Dozier and Holland. And unbeknownst to the public, the credits, it says Band of Gold written by Ron Dunbar and Edith Wayne. Well, they didn't really write it because the HDH, Holland, Dozier and Holland, they run a lawsuit with Motown. And so they weren't allowed to write anything. It was sort of like a legal thing, a legal ban, and they had to use other names. Ron Dunbar, however, was the person who worked with me, used to pick me up from my mother's home to bring me to the rehearsal studios, and I did know him. He was a real person, and he did help me. He's the one that first brought the song to me to rehearse and everything. And when I first heard the lyrics, I said, oh, I don't know, this song is a little, it's more or less for an adolescent person who's like maybe 15 or 16 years old, a real girly, oh, I'm so innocent song. I was 28 at the time. And I said, I don't know about that. Can they change these lyrics? And he said, absolutely not. He said, just sing the song. I said, okay. That was it.
The amazing point about that story, if everyone goes to YouTube now and looks up the Band of Gold, the Invictus story, it's all there where you tell the story, he tells the story, and it's all about Invictus. That is a fantastic documentary. I loved it.
Oh, yeah, there was that. Yeah, right. There were several years ago, some gentlemen out of Michigan, they did a documentary on Holland, Dozier and Holland, Invictus Records, and the title of the documentary was Band of Gold. So that title has been used a lot, and because they said they found that, and someone else told me this, someone in the stock market end of it, and they said that Band of Gold was probably the biggest selling record that Invictus did, the biggest selling single, and it stood out. And so it was interesting because I wound up having to sue them myself, but you know how those things go. And
that's the music business.
that's the music business. And so we're all friends now. I love the guys. They love me. And Eddie Holland comes to my shows, and and we're still friends. But there was a point where I had to sue them, because I felt like things weren't being handled properly and I was not being treated well. I'll put it that way. But hey, life goes on. And I felt like I was blessed to have recorded a song that became such an iconic tune and is still relevant today in this world of ours.
You've got to tell me now the background, how you came together with Freda and wrote the book, right? Band of Gold, a memoir. Tell me now the story, how it started and how long it took to actually write the book to get to this point.
Well, to be perfectly honest, when I was studying journalism at Central Michigan University, I had a column in the college newspaper where I knew I could get free albums if I did album reviews. And one of the first album reviews I did was Freda Payne's Contact album. So I have been writing about Freda Payne for nearly 50 years now.
Oh, wow.
Actually 50 years. And we're not even that old yet. I first met Freda in the 70s when she was performing at the Playboy Club in New York City, and just introduced myself. I was working for Q magazine. Well, then flash forward to the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and Freda and I began seeing each other socially, often through our dear friend Mary Wilson at her birthday parties and other events. And I know I came to see you in a benefit in Palm Springs once. And we started talking about, well, we should do a book together. Oh, yeah, we'll get together. We'll do that eventually. Well, eventually finally came a couple of years ago, right after I got a great recipe from her for my cookbook that you just mentioned, Eat Like a Rock Star. And I said, let's get together, let's have lunch, and let's start doing this. So we went to one of my favorite ramen places on Sawtell, which is long gone in Los Angeles. And we sat there and she told me absolutely fabulous stories. And I said, this is definitely a book. And that's how it started. That was about 2016 when we got together.
And
Wow.
Mary Wilson does the forward to the book. That's right, isn't it?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, it really kind of is the glue between coming right out of the big success I had with Mary and Supreme Glamour. What a natural sort of transition to have Mary involved in Freda's story, because Freda and Mary were best buddies as well. So it's kind of like it's a family affair in a way. And how absolutely tragic for all of us that Mary is not here to celebrate the release of this book. It really
I know.
just pains.
And you know what, Mark? Another thing I'd like to add is that Mary did the forward. When did we got it like around, was it like February or no, not February.
No, I think it was like October of last year we were working on it.
Yeah, October of last year, 2020. And so we had it. And then it's sort of ironic that we lost her, in February 8th, 2021. That no one ever saw that coming, and everybody was totally devastated. Mary was so vibrant, and so she was up and at it and ready to go.
Absolutely. And Plastic, I have to tell you that I talked to her the day before she passed, and she was going to come out here to Tucson, Arizona. She goes, oh, Mark, I'm coming out there to look for a house. We're really going to have some great adventures. And I was so excited when I hung up the phone. And then Freda called me the next evening and she said, did you hear the rumors? And it was just like a knife in the heart. I just couldn't believe.
It wasn't for another about 3 hours until we discovered that it was a fact. That's how it goes when somebody you love and someone that you've known for so long and you're close to, and especially if it's totally out of the blue, it's devastating.
We're so blessed to have had her in our lives, and we're so happy to have this introduction to the book too, because it kind of keeps her alive, her creativity and the love we have for her.
Yeah, and it shows me how Mary felt about me, because sometimes you have friends, and then if they were to sit down, if they were to write an essay or a piece on their relationship with you or how they feel about, and then you realize, oh my God, they really think that much of me. They think, oh wow, I didn't know they thought that much of me or whatever. And it was interesting how she went back all the way to 1965 when we first met. And that was in Manchester, England. I was performing at a private club there as a solo artist. I've always been a solo artist. And there was an old theater, and they had the Motor City Review coming to town, and they were performing at this old theater. And I said, I'm going to call backstage and see if Barry's there, because I knew Barry back then. I had known Barry, and I discovered that he was there, and he answered the phone. They put him on the phone, the stage manager. That's when we first met. It was Diana Ross, Florence Ballard, Mary. Smokey was there with the Miracles. Little Stevie Wonder. He was like a little teenager back then, and Junior Walker, and I think it was the Temptations, and Martha Reeves, and all of those people. They were all there, and I went backstage, and Barry brought me backstage rather, and that was when we first met. And then after that, down through the years, we would run into, our paths would cross. Yes.
And a lot of people kind of think, oh, Freda, was she on Motown? You almost were a couple of times.
Yeah, I was. Let me tell you, well, that's a whole nother story. We have time.
Of course we have. But what happens is, I believe Barry Gordy wanted to sign you up, but your mother didn't want you to sign.
No, my mother didn't agree with his business acumen. She didn't agree with the terms that he put forth, that he demanded, and he wouldn't budge. Sometimes when you negotiate, what's a contract for but to negotiate, correct? And it might be just to tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit there. And that's what bargaining is all about. And he didn't want to change anything. So that's what happened. I was 14 years old, and this was in 1957. Okay, let's go way back. And there was no Motown then when my first encounter with Barry. Barry, to this day, I was surprised that he admitted it, but he said, Freda was my first female artist, period. His very first one. And I'm the first one that he really wanted to sign. He really got excited about. He used to come and watch me in my dance classes. And then at that time, I had been on TV in Detroit. I'd been winning talent contests, and I was sort of like a little protege, little, what do you call it when somebody's young? And I was that. And so he would be interested. And it was ironic. He would come to my Afro-Cuban class, my Afro-Cuban dance class. And it's ironic that I remember when the Supremes and the Temptations had that first special, and I think Diana did a little Afro-Cuban dance, a little African dance, just a little thing. And I said, I wonder where that idea came from. But anyway, that's the way it goes. I mean, it might be something that's just my imagination. But
you know what the amazing thing is, Mark and Freda, this is pre-Beatles you're talking about there. You know what I mean? You were there before the fads and the groups and things happen. Do you know the word pioneer? You got no idea how much happiness you give to the world every day through your music. Even your album Contact, right? Freda Payne's greatest hits. I got to tell you, that the love that you have for the world through your music and the love of the people and your fans all these years, you got no idea, especially here in Australia. I know your song Band of Gold is always in heavy rotation. And I've got to ask you, you've been to Melbourne, Australia before, haven't you?
Yeah, I was just there. What was it, 2018 or 2000?
I think it was 2019.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're better than me. 2019, I was there in Melbourne at this club called Bert's Basement. It's a jazz club. Oh, and I love Melbourne. I want to come back. And I was with Ralph Armstrong, the Ralph Armstrong Trio, and I had a lovely time. And then before that, I was there in Melbourne in 2014, and I played the it was the Performing Arts Center, the Melbourne Performing Arts Center.
Melbourne Performing Arts Center, the one with the spiral.
Right. And I think I was in Murdoch's, that was named after his mother, the auditorium. Lovely place. And they had the most beautiful concert piano. there in that room. It was a beauty. And I just did one show one night, and it was a tribute to Ella Fitzgerald.
The big influences you have from jazz, for example, like Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and Billie Holiday. I mean, all these people were influences on you. But then you went from jazz into pop.
Yeah.
And I love the story, how you said about Band of Gold, but you just got to understand, when you have a song that's a worldwide gold hit song that plays on the radio daily, every 5 minutes, it's played all over the world, you got no idea how many people and hearts that you touch. Every time I hear your song, I just love it, even now. As you said, it's got more meaning now even than back then, because now your audiences are bigger. There's more generations of fans. They're going to read about your stories, and it's your life stories that really matter, that at least now it's in writing, it's in a book. And Mark,
I know.
you
It's in
should
a
be
book.
so proud because you helped to bring these things to fruition. And I can't wait to read your story, Freda. And I mean that sincerely.
I can't, you know what? I haven't read the final cut.
Well, we read it
We have-
16 or 17 times
we
along the
know
way.
it. I mean, it's sort of like, oh my God, I've read this, I don't know how many, 25 times already. But the final cut, you still want to read it and say, oh, were there any mistakes made? Oh, did they put that in? Oh, well, I'm glad they corrected that part. Oh, I'd like to mention really quickly, my latest recording effort, which I'm going to show you now. See,
Ooh.
it's called Let There Be Love. I did a duet with Johnny Mathis. I did a duet with Kenny Lattimore, another pop R&B artist, Dee Dee Bridgewater, a jazz artist, and Kurt Elling, a male jazz artist. And they all have won Grammys. So I just want to say that that's out as well. It's been out for a few months now. Yeah. But anyway, right now the book is like I'm very excited about my book, Band of Gold.
But Freda, you know the book and your song's going to live forever. Isn't that the great thing?
I know. And Contact, you mentioned Contact. That was, I think, one of the best albums I did during my tenure on the Invictus label. And it's so funny, but my birthday was just September the 19th. And I get about a week before that, I get a call from RuPaul. Do you know who that is? RuPaul. He's on Logo and the drag runway.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah, I get a call from RuPaul. We're friends, and he says, "Freda, I don't know what it is. I was in my shower, and all of a sudden, I start thinking I was playing your old album, Contact. It's one of my. He said it's one of his favorites, and he just said the spirit just told him to call me, and he did." And so that was another ironic thing, for RuPaul to call me like that out of the blue.
But I got to say, that's a Grammy-nominated award album.
I got nominated.
Grammy.
Right, I was. It was like in 2 categories. Yeah.
One of my favorite videos, I've got to say, because I can't stop watching it, so I have to tell you my personal favorite. It's the one where you're wearing that black outfit and you come out and you sing Band of Gold, and it's got the belt with the long pieces of leather. Tell me about that clip. I love that clip.
Yeah.
Is that Soul Train? Might that be Soul Train?
I think it might be one of my Soul Train appearances, because I did Soul Train more than once. I did Soul Train when they were still in Chicago, and then I did it before Band of Gold. And then when Band of Gold came out, that's when I did it again. And then I did it again when I had another recording when I was on Capitol, because I had left Invictus by then. I did Soul Train like about three or 4 times. Yeah.
You know, you made it when you're on Soul Train, Mark. I tell you. I saw the other one you did on Soul Train too. There are a few videos. And as I said, the great thing is your music lives on. You only have to go to YouTube, all over the world platforms, and listen to your great songs.
Yeah. And then I do acting too. I've done Broadway, and I did Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Ladies, which was a hit on Broadway. And I've done 6 separate companies at different times down through the years. I did Blues in the Night. That's another production show. And that was I've done 6 companies of that. And I've done plays, The Divorce by Donald B. Welch. And I've done a few other projects as
Oh,
well.
well, Sophisticated Ladies too. You did a long run of Sophisticated Ladies all over the world, basically.
Oh yeah, I did it in Italy, in Norway, all over the US. I've done that, like, where the tours would last, like 9 or 10 months, about 10 months. Oh, the longest tour I was ever on was Jelly's Last Jam. And that was the tour, that was the Broadway show that was Gregory Hines, who he won the Tony for that one. And and then I wound up doing the tour and Savion Glover, because it was about Jelly Roll Morton, the guy who purportedly was the inventor of jazz out of New Orleans. And Savion Glover is like one of the best tap dancers in the world, not the country, the world. And we did a tour that lasted a year, 1 year, and it was Jelly's Last Jam. That was back in 1995.
I mean, I'm here in Australia, and I'm so happy and excited for you guys. Seriously, to put a book together and for Freda to put all the memoirs on this book. I tell everyone now, don't wait. Amazon, Booktopia, eBay, it's all over the net because I've checked it out. Plus, GP does his homework. And I got to say, Freda, the love that everyone has for you all over the world, we mean it sincerely. The world loves you, and we're so proud of you and Mark for putting this book together for the fans. And everyone just go out there and buy them. And if you've got any message you want to say now about the book, please do to your fans.
Well, just go and read it and see for yourself. There's a lot of interesting things in there. I do talk about my love affairs and some of my accomplishments. And of course, my early childhood life. Usually books start out with chapter 1. Well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan. My mother was Charles Lee Farley. My father and my dad, they divorced when I was 3 and a half. And it goes on. And I talk about my sister, Sherry, who, by the way, became a Supreme in 1973 with Mary Wilson and Cindy Birdsong. And then again, when Cindy left, then Susay Green came on board, and they had a nice run on Motown, recording on Motown. And I talk about that. I talk about, some of my ups and some of my downs. It wasn't all peaches and cream. I talk about mistakes I've made in my career, based on how I felt at the time. And I thought I was right. And sometimes when you think you're right, you might be wrong. And we see that now, even with the biggest of corporations and stars. And you see people making mistakes, not a lot, but you do see things they could always go back and say, I should have turned left instead of turning right.
Like your song, The Road We Didn't Take,
The road. Oh yeah, that's a good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. The road we didn't take. And I addressed that to Eddie Holland. The road we didn't take.
But the book is full of surprises, and as to quote Mary Wilson from her intro, honey, you named names in this book.
Yeah, I named names. I named names.
Well, you've worked with so many people, including Sammy Davis Jr., etc. And I mean, it goes on and on forever, and the stories don't end. Everybody go out there, don't wait. What number book is this? Because you never stop writing fantastic, great books.
This is my 67th book. 67.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you
so very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.